Hey, all right, thanks for joining me. So I'm finally getting going on this RCA 12-inch three-way system. And so I guess this will be part one. I'm really excited. Found on eBay, I scored these Laspoda crossovers. These things are nutty, man. I mean, the components on these things are really nice. So I got them for a really good price. And yeah, I'm really excited to try them out. Just the components alone are worth what I paid for them. But if the network is good and it works good in the speaker, then that's a bonus too. So let's see, where to start? Well, I've got the RCAs pulled out. I got them on my trusty Home Chef boxes as speaker stands. And I'm going to go ahead and hook them up, listen to them a little bit in their stock form. I also want to measure them to see where they're at right now with the cheesy crossover and the cheap drivers and all that stuff. That was the one step that I missed when I did my big old Jensen CS-315 project, is I just assumed that the frequency response would be crummy without a crossover and stuff. So this one, I'm gonna actually see what RadioShack / Tandy Corporation / RCA actually did with these speakers. That'll be interesting. Now, that being said, I've watched some really interesting videos on echo chambers. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, the proper way to run frequency tests on speakers is not in a room like I'm doing. It's that's the wrong way to do it. What I'm doing will provide me with in-room response of these speakers, and intuitively I think it'll give us an idea of that speaker's frequency response. I think that with the mic close enough and everything else, that we should get a pretty fair representation of what that speaker's profile is. But I'll try to turn you onto a link or show you the video that I watched. It's really, really good. Yeah, so an echoic chamber is void of any echo. And so this is new to me because I didn't know that. I just thought an anechoic chamber was like a room with padding in it, or sound insulation, foam, whatever, right? I just thought that they were trying to cut down on reflections. But it's more than that. It represents the absence of echo altogether. It starts out in an actual chamber. And he goes through this whole thing where he moves around the microphone and whatnot, and further back and closer up, and kind of show you what that's like. Then he does the same thing, flips out to like an open field. And so apparently they use a field as their like datum or their baseline for, that's the standard, the benchmark for the anechoic chamber, because the chamber should be big enough and have the proper foam padding and everything else. It's got shapes to it and whatnot that kind of catches and absorbs sound waves. It doesn't seem like it would be a big deal, but the way this guy demonstrates it in the video is pretty incredible. And I think that you will be really surprised at what a difference reflections make in sound. So the fact that I'm in a office / bedroom, and it is, it's smaller and stuff. There's a few things in here. It's not treated for sound or anything, but regardless, there's a lot of reflections going on. Now, the good news is that I don't think for what I'm doing with these speakers, I don't think it's going to skew it a whole bunch. I think that for DIY, just improving old vintage speakers, kind of RestoMod speakers, that this should be sufficient. I don't have access to an echoic chamber. I might try to make some crude little thing where I could put the speaker in it. Perhaps it's pretty small, and I could, you know, put a ton of absorption on there, you know, material that absorbs sound waves and stuff, and try to measure it like that and just see what the difference would be, because I imagine it should be different. But no, this room, the fact that it's got, you know, it's such a small room, any reverberation is going to be minimal. Reverberation, he'll teach you about that too in the video. That's something different. That's not echo. Echo and reverberation are different. But as far as like any kind of reflections, room reflections, echo, things like that, it's a small room. It's going to be pretty minimal. Everything's going to be reaching the microphone, the measurement microphone that I do my frequency sweeps with, pretty much at the same time. I don't think it's going to cloud that a whole bunch. That being said, again, disclaimer, now I know it's not the right way to do it, but it's the way I'm doing it on these speakers, and it's probably the way a lot of you guys do it at home too if you're working on speakers, because you don't have an anechoic chamber either. So anyway, all right, so just to recap, these RCA three-way speakers, they were also sold the same exact speaker under the Optimus label. RadioShack apparently had made some deal with RCA, and these are from early 2000s. So these are definitely vintage speakers. I got them for so cheap, it's incredible. 20 bucks for the pair, and these things literally look brand new. Like when I plug them in and I start listening to them, I think I'm gonna have to put them through a burn-in process, because I don't think anyone's ever used these things. They are spotless, they're mint, and they really don't, like, there's no signs of wear that I can see on them, other than from maybe transporting them. Anyway, yeah, I'll hook those up, listen to them, frequency test them, and as an added bonus, now I've already kind of given you a teaser. I've kind of spoiled you a little bit by showing you this gorgeous crossover, but I'm also going to try to show you the other components that I have coming for these speakers, one of which was actually recommended by a subscriber slash viewer who commented. So thank you for that. I think his name is Larry, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, shout out to you. I'm going to try this mid-range that you recommended. I've got some hesitations about it, and I'll explain why when I'm showing you what it is. But you know, worst case scenario is it doesn't work out and I need to, I don't know, switch it out with something else, right? Not a huge deal. Well, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started, hook these up, start to listen to them. It's gonna be really sad to not listen to these big ones that I did. Oh my God, these things, after listening to them all week, they're just, I love it. I really like them. They're nice speakers, those Jensen CS-1230s that I redid. So that's a project that turned out pretty well. All right, let's get started. We're gonna go in fast motion with the corny music in the background, and we are gonna get this thing hooked up and get her going. All right, they're hooked up, they're running. It's actually, you know, same streaming that we were just doing on the other ones. Hey, did you notice when I was doing the wiring, hooking up the wires in the back, you remember all the speakers used to come with those goofy spring-loaded clips, right? Didn't matter how expensive the speaker was. They had the little goofy spring-loaded clips. I don't know if that was all they made back then or what, but anyway, I'm glad that they have all the different, you know, the 5-way binding posts and all the other attaching methods that they have now, because that gets old. Actually, it's not as bad as the older ones though, from the 60s and 70s that had actual screw terminals. Those were totally corny. So, all right, got the speakers running. I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera and do a frequency sweep. No, I'll move the camera, let you listen a little bit, then I'll do a frequency sweep. Okay, so I think here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play a little bit of this high-end analog audio on YouTube from, God, what's the name of it again? Audio Hind, I think. Excellent, excellent recorded music. I love it. So this is going from my tablet over just a cheapo Amazon, you know, patch cord to the analog, to the auxiliary connection on this old NAD receiver. So I do most of my testing at -10 dB. That's where I was doing a lot of the you know, sound testing and measuring on that big pair of speakers that I just got finished with. So anyway, that being said, what I'm gonna do, I got a frequency response up here. This is, yeah, that's of the other speakers that I just got done with. So I'll run these against that and you know, see what it does. But first I wanted to hear a little bit of music. I'll play a little bit of this, and I got sidetracked there. Forgive me, I just had my 57th birthday, so it's yeah, it's old age catching up. Then what I'll do is I also was playing a lot of music in the other videos where I redid the Jensens with this old RIP CD I did over 20 years ago. I call it Speaker Test with Real Instruments. And anyway, so it's an old RIP CD playing over a DVD player, an NAD DVD player. And then the measurement system, which is the Dayton OmniMic, along with this DVD. It's called the OmniMic system, OmniMic V2 system. So that gives us some sweeps that we can do digitally. And then there's also a source on YouTube that I like to use. It's called, it's by somebody named Dr. Mix, and it's called Test Your Speakers. So between the two of them, I can dial that in and see what they are doing in this room. Again, in this room, because I'm not in a special chamber. All right, let's sit in here. Let's do a little bit of listening and you know, see what these things sound like. So far, with this music, this high-end audiophile music, sounds pretty good. So I'm gonna see how it goes. I gotta keep these just a little bit, kind of like so. Looks good. Let's turn this up a little bit. So this will be -10, just like what I'm testing the other speakers at. I'll stick with that on the analog.
The autumn leaves drift by my window. The autumn leaves turn red and gold. What have I gotta do to make you want me? What have I gotta do to be heard? The look of love is in your eyes. A look your smile can disguise. Saying so much more.
let you listen while I look up some stuff online.
Turn down the lights, turn down the bed, turn down these voices inside my head. Lie down with me, tell me no lies, just hold me close, don't patronize. I can't make you love me if you don't. You can't make your heart feel something it won't. Here in the dark, these final hours, I will lay down my heart and I'll feel the power. You my baby, he loves me crazy, and I don't wanna let him go. But I already know he's a rolling stone. See, I'm not the kind of woman get my heart all wrapped up in one romance. But this man put a spell on me, and ever since that day I can't see clearly. I'm trying to forget how I feel. And I told myself, I've got to keep it real. That's when he puts his hands on me. And all at once, I admit his mercy.
So, they don't sound horrible. I could listen to them. I probably wouldn't buy them on purpose. They don't sound horrible, but they are very they're really strong in the mid-range area. So I'm wondering if I'm going to see that in the frequency sweep. The tweeter has kind of a semblance to it. A semblance is like just a fancy word for like a s sound, right? So when especially a female singer or cymbals or something like that hits a certain note, you hear an extra s like that. The woofers, they sound like they're carrying the mid-range pretty well. They sound like they're handling a little bit deeper bass pretty well. These are rated at 50 hertz. That's probably what the cabinet is tuned to. It's a 2 cubic foot cabinet with a 2 1/4 inch or 2 3/8 inch port. So it's right around 50 hertz. They do tend to get a little bit sloppy though when the music information is, when there's a lot of it. Like when it's real isolated, like with this acoustic type music, especially when there's not a lot of it going on, they sound pretty nice. When there's a lot going on at one time, they don't really reflect that. So I'm going to, yeah, so earlier the video had cut off on me. Maybe it was because I had a remote in my pocket, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure how far I got. But I figured I'd let you listen to some of this audio high-end analog audio that's running through the analog connection of my NAD receiver at -10 dB. Through a cheapo Amazon patch cord. Had to throw that in there. But yeah, so we heard that stuff. Now the other things that I listened to is this old CD that I had burned. I had ripped it like over 20 years ago. And it still sounds good. Doesn't have scratches to make it skip as far as I know. And then for doing the frequency sweeps, I'll be using this Dayton Audio Omni mic and the Omni for omnidirectional. And then also this Omni mic V2 disc. It's a DVD disc. So luckily I've got a DVD player here. It's a old NAD CD DVD player, but I'm glad I have it for this. The other thing that I want to do is I got this video queued up that I was rambling on about. This guy that talks about sound and echo chambers. Really smart dude. Got all my products pulled up so I could show those to you. But first things first, let's hear a little digital. This will be an old ripped CD playing on a DVD player, running through an HDMI connection on this receiver. So we are going to be digital on this. These ones I usually run, because it's louder, I usually run it like, say, -20. Like that sounds real nice to me. Very airy. The strings sound pretty nice. Can hear a little bit of bass, but not a ton, not like those big 3-ways, the big 15-inch 3-ways. I can't feel the bass either, so there's not a real sense of big presence here. It doesn't give a big sound stage. Let's try skipping ahead. That sounded good, but it didn't have a lot of bass. It had a lot of clarity though. Horns sound a little blarish, a little messy. Drums sound pretty cool on this, nice and clear. Piano sounds a little bit loud to me.
You were the love for certain of my life.
Her voice is okay.
You simply my beloved wife. I don't know for certain how I'll live my life.
So with the voice, it almost sounds like, how do you put it? It doesn't have a whole lot of depth. It sounds kind of like more in your face.
Now alone without my beloved.
Nice punchy bass though. I do like that punchy bass. It's kind of a mid bass. You can tell I like Natalie Merchant, right? Here's some old rock and roll. All right. This is... Okay, I gotta stop it here. I mean, not stop it, stop the music for you, but throw in a comment here about cheap speakers. So, and these don't sound anywhere near as nice as those big old Jensens did before I started messing with them. So even without any real crossovers in those Jensens, and being, they're probably older than these, they still sounded way better. These, so with this John Cougar song going, man, it's like the drums are there, but it's light on the bass, so there's not a whole lot of presence, and you definitely can't feel it. Now, the guitar is just, man, it is just blary, like, wow, you know? So I'm interested to see what's going to happen when his voice really kicks in, because I got a feeling like, I mean, Natalie Merchant, she's got a gorgeous voice, but her voice sounded like it was, like everything else was kind of spacious, but her voice was just kind of there, coming out of the speakers. Like you could tell, just coming from these speakers. Didn't sound like she was in front of me or in the middle of me or anything like that. So anyway, let's keep this thing going, and we're probably going to get to the frequency test pretty quick here. Yeah, it's just kind of obnoxious. I really look forward to the points in time when he stops singing and I could just hear the drums, because that's the best part of it. But with the guitars and his vocals going, it is just, it's harsh.
Done so many things wrong, I don't know if I can do right. Done so many things wrong, I don't know if I can do right.
So, if you watched any of my previous videos, I played this song a lot. I like Tracy Chapman, but I really like the way that bass kicks in the beginning of the song. And so, like, say with the 15-inch three-ways that I built, I mean, that was just instant. You could feel it all through your body. And not only could you feel it, but you could hear it. And when I would watch the frequency response while playing that song, most of that bass is playing right there around 40 hertz and tapering off into subsonic.
Done so many things wrong, I don't know if I can do right. Done so many things wrong, I don't know if I can do right.
What we're catching off of these is probably, you know, much higher than that. We're completely missing all that huge presence that song brings to us over a full range speaker. just gonna pause a quick minute there. So when that guitar kicked in, so what I'm used to hearing from all that trial and error for weeks now on end, you know, listening to the song over and over on the other speakers, the guitar doesn't sound like, it almost sounds like you're next to the body of the guitar. It's almost got a resonance, and it might be, you know, it might be coming off of these cabinets because they got no bracing in them at all. Yeah, so the guitar, it sounds like you're kind of right next to the body of the guitar, and the guitar is sort of like her voice is. It sounds like it's just coming from the front of the speaker. Your ears are immediately attracted to that. Unlike playing it over the other speakers, when that guitar comes in, it's just like you don't know where it's at. Like it might be, you know, up over there or something. I mean, it just fills in that music the way it was supposed to be.
Give me a chance, I'll try.
Now there's going to be more music coming in.
See, it's been a hard road, the road I'm traveling on. If I take your hand, might lead you.
So I got to interject again. So that's a really perfect example of where these speakers are lacking, is that they have very, very little dynamic capability. And by that I mean when there's a lot going on, like these speakers seem to have trouble keeping up with all of that at the same time. So it's okay as long as it's isolated instruments and isolated vocals, but man, when everything comes in at one time, it just falls apart. You know, there's a lot of folks that have gone out. Somebody went out and bought these speakers brand new. Somebody, you know, saw them on the shelf at RadioShack and said, yep, that's for me, and they bought it. And maybe that's why they are looking like they are never used. Maybe they plugged them in and said, boy, these sound like crap. I'm going to put them in storage or something. I'm not sure. But that's pretty rude, I know. So sorry, Tandy. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So, but by contrast, like these big speakers, when that song kicks in, the big speakers, not these, I'm talking about the ones behind them that aren't running right now. Man, it's like, it's just like so enjoyable. Like that's a part of the song that you really look forward to coming in full throttle.
See, it's been a hard road, the road I'm traveling on. If I take your hand, might lead you down the path to ruin. Had a hard life, just sing it so you'll understand. Oh, right now, doing the best I can.
You know, having some equipment to back that up electronically and a decent set of speakers is just an experience that, you know, probably speaker geeks worldwide look forward to. And unfortunately, the RCA/Optimuses don't fit that bill at all. Anyway, yeah, this is enough listening for me, and I'm sure it is you too. They sound like crap. I would classify them as maybe garage speakers, basement speakers, maybe in a teenager's bedroom, something like that. You know, I do like the way that they look though, and that's one of the reasons I picked them up, is I like the cabinets and I like the way that they look. Now, let's see how they measure, because I'm interested in that. And I've got a sneaky feeling back in the day, and if you were to go to RadioShack in 2002 and say, hey, what's the frequency response on these speakers? They look really cool. They'd be like 50 hertz to 23,000 hertz. Oh, awesome. Where's the graph? Sorry. Let me show you the CB radio. No, just kidding. Okay. Well, all right, let's go ahead and run a sweep on this and see what we get. I might be doing a fast thing here in a minute. All right, so we're about 3 feet away, and you know we're off axis, but we're getting a combined frequency of these. So that's what I was hooking up is the OmniMic 5.1 test signals. And what I'll be doing is I'm going to be running probably short sweeps, maybe long sweeps, and bass sweeps as well. Short sweeps, no bass, that will kind of eliminate the low woofer end. All right, and we are on a 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz scale here. So I'm going to clear this up. This will be a fresh sweep. Well, I got to tell you, the frequency response doesn't look horrible. Frequency response actually looks pretty nice. That's pretty wild. I guess that just goes to show you. Just because you got a perfect frequency response doesn't necessarily mean you have a perfect speaker. Just a thought. All right, let's try a long sweep. Okay, so these are actually 20 dB increments versus the 10 that it should be in. All right, there we go. Okay, so there's the frequency response. That's in 10 dB graduations. So it looks like it's plus minus, say, 15 dB. So that's, you know, not uncommon for a for just a cheapo commercial speaker. All right, let's try a bass sweep. So here's our bass profile. Now these are advertised as a 50 hertz cabinet, or 50 hertz frequency response, which is right there. So they're not lying. We are missing a lot of information on the lower end. As it heads into the mid bass, it's kind of all over the place, real wonky. And then you can see where it starts to spike up by, what is that, 10, 20, 24, 25 dB. It jumps up from 300 to 400. That could be why it sounds so funky in the mid-range. All right, let's try the high sweep. Short sweep with no bass. How's that? Let's clear this out. All right, screenshot that guy. This top end doesn't look too awful bad, especially given the fact that they're cheap speakers, cheap drivers, cheap crossovers. All right, so we've done our frequency sweep there. Let's try the Dr. Mix frequency sweep. That one's kind of long and annoying, but I wanted to see it.
Hi, welcome to Dr. Mix. This is a signal test for you. Enjoy.
right, so I'll drop this screenshot in the video so you can look at it a little harder, but it doesn't look bad. The frequency response does not look bad. It doesn't look any worse than a lot of the trial and error stuff I was doing on the other set of speakers, but it's not really representative of the way that they sound. That being said, it's got a pretty flat response in the frequency. It's got a pretty flat response in the mid-range area, as well as the high end. So I guess that's a plus. Maybe this woofer is a big part of the issue on this set of speakers, in which case maybe a good place to start, like say if you were doing this yourself, you had this set of speakers, you were like, oh man, maybe just putting in some new woofers might fix it. I don't know. That'll be the first thing the first thing I drop in there will be a crossover, that fancy crossover I showed you earlier. This thing is nuts. Yeah, look at this big old crossover. And I'll show you this too. Maybe I'll start by showing you this online what it is. But yeah, so I'll put this in there and see what happens, see if it can clean it up or make it sound any better. Might make it sound worse, I don't know. All right, well, I'll come behind you and I'll point the camera at the computer screen and you can look at what I've got pulled up and I'll explain what I'm showing you. Oh yeah, so first there's this guy. He's the sound guy. And this is a really cool video, so I highly recommend it. It's called Introduction to Room Acoustics. And let's see, who is this guy? This Jeff Martin. This seems like one really super smart dude. And
the sound that goes that way.
This is it. I mean, it's really cool. It's well worth the 25-minute 25-minute video watching it. All right, so that's that guy. Watch that video. It's really cool. So let's talk about these crossovers, because everybody's like, hey man, you can't get no store-bought crossover, off-the-shelf crossover. That's just wrong. Like, you got to be perfect with your crossover and do all the measuring and calculators and stuff. Well, these things are stupid expensive, right? Like, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's like, almost $300, but you do get free shipping. But yeah, so this is actually this is going to be this crossover. But this is obviously an older one. It doesn't look like that, all right? It looks like they had to go with electrolytic caps, probably because of the cost of stuff nowadays. As far as the rest of it goes, it's still got the 1, 2, 3, 4, I think they use Jansen coils. But this has got also, so this one here, it's got Dayton poly caps on it. I don't know what kind of resistor, but not that it really matters. These are a little bit older. The glue's breaking on them, so I'm gonna have to make sure they're attached good and everything. But honestly, what I paid for these, it's well worth the investment just for the parts alone, because these parts are so expensive now. So I'm gonna give these a try. The guy that I bought them from, he didn't know which ones they were. So they make them in an 850 3500 crossover point or a 650 5000. So either one of those will work for me. All right, so that's the crossover that I'm going to be putting in there. Now next, man, I'll tell you what, I love planning my speaker builds, right? So I use Parts Express. I put a little project list here together and I start picking out stuff, and I was looking at, the first thing I was looking at for this box was actually the 12-inch Designer Series woofer. This is a really, a really nice looking woofer, and it gets a nice frequency response. It looks like it would, you know, be pretty cool looking. Doesn't have the big ugly gasket around the outside. That's a nice woofer. 25 to 25,000 hertz, 91 dB. I mean, this is a really nice speaker. And I threw them in the cart, but didn't buy them. And I'll get to that in a minute. All right, so here's the shopping list I had created for this project. And I was thinking for the mid-range, I was thinking about going with this Dayton Audio 4-inch treated paper cone mid-bass. It looked like a decent choice. The Designer Series woofer, that kind of looked like a decent choice. Be honest with you though, the frequency responses on these for just a dedicated mid-range, I didn't think they were very impressive. So that was one of the downsides to it. I think that they look cool though. And I was thinking of this one especially because it would match this Designer Series woofer. I was going to go with this crossover again. This is the same crossover that I had put into the big Jensen project. But I found the other ones for, I spent less money and got a hell of a lot better components. I was considering these Eminence 4-inch full ranges for the mid-ranges. Those have an okay frequency response across that area. The mid-range that really had this one here, I was actually, this is the tweeter. I didn't want to show you the tweeter, I wanted to show you the mid-range. Once you get out of your cart, you're doomed. All right, here's the cart. So yeah, the Eminence, that's a nice speaker. I thought about putting those in there. That's a 4-inch. The 5-inch Designer Series woofer, I would have had to make the hole bigger because this has got a pretty large basket. As far as really what I wanted to put in here, it was this 2-inch dome. Let me open that in a new window so I don't lose my place. But this thing, oh my gosh, this would have been perfect for this. And I know people say that they have a rough time with domes. The frequency response was right. 500, 8,000 or 8,500. Decibel sensitivity looked good, 90 dB. The graph on it, holy smokes, look at this. You know, because where I'm working at, where I was looking at crossing these things over, is somewhere between, that crossover is anywhere from what, 600 and something, 625, 650, whatever. Or it was going to be, what, 800 or 850. So I would have been picking it, you know, the woofer would have been transitioning here. And then they cross over either at like 8,000, I think it was, or what was the other crossover point? Like 5,000, I think. So, but regardless, it was really nice and flat. So this would have been a really good choice. And I really would have liked to grab that one. It would have fit right in the hole without any modification. And then I also thought about the Dayton 5-inch full range driver, because that's what I had in the bigger Jensen project I did. And those worked okay. It took quite a bit of tweaking to make them okay, but they do sound very, very nice, and they're pretty cheap. But what I wind up going with was the Goldwood. The Goldwood heavy duty sealed back mid-range. And I'll show you that thing here. This was recommended to me by a viewer, left a comment. And so this is, I did look at this before. It was in the project list before it was ever recommended to me, because I like the way it looks. It definitely looks really good, and it's the perfect size. I don't need to modify the hole, so that was a plus. The spec sheet on it was what was questionable to me. So here's the frequency response on this. So this hump, I was like, oh my gosh, what would I ever do with that hump? And then this suck out, not sure what I can do with that, but here's a frequency range that we're talking about. So basically we're looking at, 1,000, say we'd be around here. So we'd be picking this up from the woofer right in this area. Let me use a pen instead of my big ugly finger. Yeah, we'd be picking it up right around here from the woofer. Right in this area for the crossover. And this is 5 dB, so that shouldn't be that hard to handle. I think I might be able to work with that. Biggest thing I'm worried about with that one though is the sensitivity, because it does say that it is got, this might be impossible, I'm not sure, 96 dB. Oof. I might be taking a double take on that one. I don't know. I'll have to see what they sound like when I put them in there. They're probably gonna be really loud. Wow, that's super loud. All right, tweeters. Let's talk about tweeters. On my project list, I had 2 tweeters picked out. I had the Morel soft ohm tweeter picked out and the Hi-Vi 3/4 inch tweeter. They both would fit in the existing hole without too much modification, if any. This one's $40. I've used Morels in the past. They're really good speakers. The Hi-Vi, $8.29. I mean, how can you argue with that, right? So that was actually in my cart, but I wasn't super thrilled with the frequency response on that thing. And this one here is back ordered. So I started doing some more searching for something that I could fit in there and would still sound pretty decent. So this was the tweeter that I did wind up picking out for this project. It's the Peerless by Timpani. And, you know, the downside is it should fit without too much modification in that. And I thought that it had some really decent specs on it. The frequency response in this thing looks really nice. And this thing goes well beyond 20,000 hertz. Not that I can hear anything past 15,000, but like on axis, this thing is really quite flat, especially considering we would be picking it up, you know, in this area. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that tweeter does when it's in the box. As far as sensitivity goes on this one, this is what Parts Express had it advertised at 86.3 dB, and that it's a 60 watt, so it'll handle plenty of power. So I don't know, that should work out okay with the woofer I'm picking out, which I'm going to show you next. How it's going to work with that mid-range has yet to be seen. That might be really wacky. The other mid-range, that soft dome, actually had a really good sensitivity that would have matched up well with this. I may wind up still getting that other one, I'm not sure. Depends on if I can get this one dialed in or not. All right, so these are I chose to go with this these binding posts for the back just because they're super cheap. And again, just like the Jensens, I want to keep this project under $200 if I can. So the one the terminals that are on the back of that speaker now is kind of like I don't know, it's a funny shape. It's not round, it's not oval, it's not square, it's somewhere in between. It's got like a little cutout in it and stuff. So making a nice round hole to fit a different terminal cup would probably be real hard. So I figured I can cut a square one easy enough. So I'll put that in there. I've used these before too, and they work pretty well. And what I chose as the woofer, this is really the big deal, right? The woofer. I wonder if I can make this bigger. It's the Dayton Classic. I would have really liked to gone with the, you know, a Series 2 if they still sold the Series 2. And I looked for some used ones online, but couldn't find any. But this is their regular Dayton Classic woofer. The frequency response on this guy and sensitivity is not awful bad either. So it's 90.3 dB. It's got an FS at 22.9, so it can reach down pretty low. And as far as the frequency response goes, it's pretty flat where I need it flat. So like, let's say for example, if I'm shooting for 50 hertz on this box, I usually try to shoot for 40, but say I have this box tuned for 50 hertz, right? It's pretty smooth all the way here where it's going to be crossing over with the mid-range. That's a really flat frequency response for a woofer. So I'm kind of excited to see if that plays out in real life. Downside to this woofer, I'll tell you, there's always a catch, right? You don't get nothing in life for free. So the catch with this one is it's going to be challenging to work with. This has a frequency response 25 to 2500, 2-inch voice coil, good power handling, etc. But they're looking for 2 3/4 feet in a vented box, and I got a 2 cubic foot box. So this box is too small for that woofer. And sealed is only 0.9. So this is another one of these deals where, just like the last set I built, I'm going to be working with a woofer that is somewhere in between. It's going to be a challenge, but hopefully it won't be too awful hard. I think that Dayton makes a good product. I can't see that this woofer wouldn't sound good. I really think it'll sound good. And the reason I chose it over the other frequency response, it looks flatter to me, number one. 54.98 a piece. Oh man, can't beat that. Here's the other ones. So this was the 12-inch that I wanted to put in there, but this is double the price. So is it really double the woofer? They went to more trouble to write more stuff about it, but I don't know if that makes it sound any better. And in terms of power handling, it definitely has got more power handling. It's a higher power speaker. It's got the same 25 to 2500. The sensitivity is very similar. The Dayton was 90.3. So it's a little bit not quite as efficient. The other thing with this one, let's take a look at, the reason it was really so attractive to me, this designer series woofer, is because it would have been absolutely 100% perfect to their recommendations. I would trust that they're pretty accurate with this stuff. But yeah, this would have been absolutely perfect. 39 hertz is right there where you hear the bass big time. And a 2 cubic foot box, that woofer would have been absolutely perfect. The one weird thing I didn't like about this one though was it's got 5 screw holes. Like, why not 8? That's very weird to me. Why would you only have 5 on there? I mean, I'm sure it's enough to hold it and keep it from rattling, but come on. Big speakers, they have 8 screws. Everybody knows that. They've been like that for 100 years. I think that about wraps it up for me. Yeah, so again, thanks for joining me and going through this, the frequency sweeps and the listening and looking at what's going in these cabinets. So this is going to be kind of an interesting project. I want to keep it under $200 if possible. I want it to be a really good sounding speaker. I want it to be a fun speaker to listen to. I don't necessarily care if it's perfectly flat, but I would love it if it did turn out that way. I might have some coloration to it. I don't know, but the main thing is they gotta sound good. So that's what I'm gonna start doing, is trying to make these things sound better. Probably tomorrow that I'll listen to them like this all day and get annoyed by them. All right, take it easy. Thanks for joining me, and stay tuned for this next video. I'm not sure when it's going to come up. Got the grandkids this weekend, so not sure if I'm going to get anything done in here, but maybe next week I'll hit you up with another video.